Tommy Rex, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now, here's your host.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle and catching up with J.P. Clark. What's going on, man?
Not too much, man. How are you today?
I'm good. You're in the process of moving or something, huh?
I moved from LA to Nashville like 2.5 years ago now, and I just bought like 75 acres, I think it is, right outside of downtown. And
oh, nice.
I'm in the process of I'm just learning how to be a land developer at the same time as I'm also doing music. But yeah, I'm hopefully gonna split it up and build a little like mini neighborhood / cult kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, save me a spot. Maybe I'll come down there.
I got one for you, man. Yeah.
Nice. And then before we get into the, me moving in on your land and everything with you, I like to go like way back. So do you remember when you were a little kid, what you originally wanted to be when you grew up?
Well, my mom always tells a story of I was into quite a few sports, but specifically baseball and hockey. And she says there was a time when I came to her and I said, I just can't decide if I want to play pro baseball or pro hockey. It's just such a torn in each direction. I just wasn't sure which one I was going to be. So I think neither of those worked out, but I always kind of my dad was a pro hockey player and my mom was a flight attendant. And I just sort of, was always thinking that there was a sport outlet. And then I joined a band when I was in 7th grade and it switched overnight and I was no longer bound for the major leagues or the NHL, and it was hopefully, for the stage. Yeah.
Nice. And do you recall some of your earliest influences musically when you were a kid?
Yeah, my mom would play a lot of Billy Joel. We lived in Manhattan, is where I grew up, so a lot of Billy Joel, a lot of Garth Brooks, kind of like an odd mix. Elton John. I was really into the Lion King soundtrack. And then in 4th or 5th grade, I remember, this was still CDs and way before streaming and all that stuff. And at school, there was kind of a cool kid group. I was on the outskirts or maybe not even really in it. But I would hang out with them and we'd play outdoor stuff that kids do. And I remember somebody had I think it was Bush 16 Stone CD, Blink, Dude Ranch. That was kind of my intro into outside of that, there was Garth Brooks and, Elton John and Billy Joel. It was oh, there's these bands. And so that kind of really flipped that switch for me. And my sister, she would give me cassettes. She's a really big country fan, but back when she was she's 3 years older than me. So when she was 13 or 14, she was into Offspring and Everclear and stuff like that. And I just remember she would pass me off for older cassette mixes or whatever, and I would just just completely fall in love with that stuff. So yeah, that was kind of the evolution somewhere around there.
And when was it you mentioned getting into a band, but was there any anything calling you to start performing or playing before that? Or
interestingly, I was a terrible public speaker and was always super afraid in school, presentations or speeches, and just I wasn't really confident with just a lot of things, and I just really recall being terrified to speak in front of people. And I found when I was playing music though, that was like, you know, a way that it was a lot easier for me to connect, and like I didn't feel nerves, and it was weird, like a weird thing. I don't know, like when you're singing, you don't have any stutters or speech impediments or anything, that you're just kind of like singing. And so I think, you know, what drew me to that was just like I could actually like, for once, it sounds kind of cliche, but when I was like 17 and was really playing shows, it was really like finally a way that I could be in front of people and like express myself and not feel the anxieties and like the, you know, of like the harsh high school years and, you know, earlier. So I think that's maybe what drew me to it. I never was like the 4-year-old or like 5-year-old that they've got the old videos like singing with the mic, and I always wanted to be on camera. I was never really that kid. And so it was
Yeah.
really like a transformation time when I like discovered that that was something that I was comfortable doing. And I was like, let's do more of this for sure.
That's awesome. I could totally relate, dude. I still like, you know, with the public speaking thing and standing in front of people. This is my outlet. This is kind of my
Yeah,
like
you're
exposure
safe.
therapy, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I totally get it.
And then when you guys did start playing out, like what was the music scene like where you grew up at?
I grew up so we moved from Manhattan to upstate New York. I lived in the Albany area, and it was like a real hardcore scene. That was like most of kind of like the local show vibes. And like there wasn't really, you know, there's a few bands like doing like what I would now consider, I mean, at the time, you know, there's all different kind of genre stuff. There's like early screamo days and like, you know, post-hardcore, or like there wasn't really a lot of like, you weren't really cool to be in like a pop rock band or like that kind of thing. So I started in like what was more of like a Blink 182 cover band thing when I was like a little, like when I was like 14. And then by the time I was really involved in our scene, like my local scene, you know, I went from playing guitar and like, you know, kind of, I guess, background screaming. And then a friend of mine, they had kicked out their lead singer for, I forget why. He had hooked up with someone in the band's girlfriend, something like that. And
Yeah, the usual.
the usual, like very, very par for the course. And he was like, "You're gonna be our singer." And I'd never been a front man before. And I remember just like maybe I was nervous for a second there, like, oh, like they were a pretty big, and by, you know, big, I mean maybe like 200 to 300 kids would show up, you know, to their shows, which was a lot for like a scene band, local scene band. And so that was a little nerve wracking. But again, I think I got an even like bigger jolt of like, this is awesome, when I was actually able to do what I was doing in front of like a bunch of kids. And yeah, it was really that. And then I started playing with these twins. One of them was in a band called Endicott. They were like a big hardcore upstate band, and the other one was a DJ. And they were the first one. I really attribute a lot of my like influence as far as just stylistically from the get-go. Like now I think things, you know, it's been 20 years or so since I've played with them, like roughly, not quite that long actually. But you know, John, who was the one that was a DJ, he was like, you know, we can loop that part, you know, like everything's in like, you know, 4-bar segments, and how like electronic music stays on this kind of like, you know, there's sort of not rules, but there's sort of like everything is on like 4 bars, and it kind of progresses a little every time. And so I never like, you know, prior to that, every song that we do in any of my bands, it's like, and let's go to another riff here, and then like this. And there was really no repetitive, you know, parts. It was all very like, I guess you could call it progressive kind of like stuff, not like not super technical, but at the same time, like, you know, there are hooks in like hardcore music occasionally. I think nowadays more though, you know, like bands like, you know, Bring Me the Horizon, and that were more heavy, like have, you know, that's kind of like a way different thing than what was around like 20-ish years ago. It was like you screamed and you were this thing, and or like really technical or like whatever. But yeah, that was my intro into like, oh, you can like loop a part that's catchy, or that's like cool, or that's meaningful, or like whatever. And that changed the game for me. I started producing in my basement, in my mom's basement, and I bought this Yamaha keyboard, and I'd sample everything out of it. And I started to make songs that, you know, had structure. I didn't know what pop songwriting was, and I mean, you know, I hadn't done any like sessions at that point. I was still a teenager. Later, a few years later, I would go over to Sweden 3 summers in a row and really studied under like some really badass dudes there, like the Max Martin-ish kind of crew, and got even more familiar with like the, you know, science and formula of like really good pop writing. But yeah, it was really right around that time then that like things sort of like changed, and I just sort of like started to chase the hook. And I think like for me, hooks are kind of what I've been, you know, successful with in my collaborations with other artists. And I think with the music that I make, I'm not trying, it's just something that I like naturally kind of gravitate to, is like, you know, it's not a rule for me, but it's kind of like, you know, I don't really write a lot of stuff down when I'm writing. And so with hooks, a lot of times it's like, if I have to write it down, it's probably a little bit too complex, or my brain's not understanding it correctly enough. So, you know, I don't think that's something that needs to be like done by everybody, but that's sort of something that I've adopted, and, you know, it kind of like makes sense in some aspects. It's like, you know, if you're the writer of it and you already are familiar with it, if you can't even really learn it, then it's going to be really tough for other people to catch on to it. So
Yeah, I was going to ask you too, like what kind of drew you to the producing side of things, and like you know, how you said you learned in your mom's basement. You kind of taught yourself along the way.
there was a local producer, this guy Tim Lynch, that every band would go to, and it would take like, you know, if you're going to do 5 songs, it would take like 6 months. Like you'd get a day or two, you know, booked per week. Tim loved to just waste time and order pizza and talk, and so like things would take forever. But I remember he used Pro Tools, and I remember I would always be in the seat that was like closest. Like if I'm sitting now at my computer, I was always like here, and I was just looking at it, and I didn't ask any questions. I didn't really want to like interrupt or like impose. But when I finally decided to, there's a little story about how I like started my actual first production. It was in a very long story short, the producer we were recording with quit halfway through to go out with his band. They got offered like a Warped Tour spot, and we were right in the middle of an album, and I was like, it was like either this is going to be trashed, or like I can just learn how to do this now, which I've kind of adopted as like a philosophy, like that I tell everybody, is like, try to, you know, it's great to collaborate, and like I don't really, you know, I really believe in that. Like I have all my favorite songs are for the most part collaborations, whether it's with 1, 2, 3, or 4 or whatever people. But learn enough that you can't be held back, or you're not ever waiting on anybody else, if possible. You know, it's not totally achievable in every scenario. I'm waiting on some people right now for some stuff, but at the end of the day, I can sit down and I can record myself and I can do everything, and I'm not counting on anybody else. And so, yeah, I mean, that was that when I sat down for the first time with Pro Tools, I guess just watching this guy for 4 or 5 years, I felt an already intuitive, like I felt like I knew the program, but I didn't really know it, but I knew it well enough. And I picked it up pretty quick. And, you know, like first things first, at the time I was like dating somebody that it was like, I wasn't a really great singer. And so I was like really wanting to learn, how do I make myself sound good? So that's essentially vocal production. I didn't know that at the time, but I was like, how do I, you know, edit and do whatever I need to do to make me sound awesome? And so little things just out of like, I think like necessity just formed that. And yeah, that's how that started. And also too, just in a super like business sense, is like, if in the song, it's really tough, it's really, really hard to make a decent living as if you're just a songwriter, if you only wear that hat, if you're just a songwriter, which I was for many years because I wanted to be that. I didn't want to touch a computer. But you do realize later on that like songwriter's the last one to get paid. You're still splitting the publishing evenly with the producer, who's also getting a fee and points. And I was like, how do I become, I'm still a songwriter, but how do I get involved in, you know, like fees and stuff, and actually try to make a living at it? Because it is really tough. You can be really good as a songwriter, but it's, you know, you need like hundreds and hundreds of millions of streams if you want to make anything.
Yeah, I was reading that too. That you are a multi-platinum songwriter. That did that come first then before the production? Sounds like you were a
No,
songwriter
no.
first, or no?
Like I mean, I was really like I'd say artist, like band guy. I wanted to be up on stage like first, and then like in tandem with that, we're talking like late teens, early 20s. In tandem with that, I had that experience where the producer quit. So then I became producer out of like necessity. And then I started also looking, I would find like I found this rapper on MySpace at the time that was local, and I was like, come record. Like I wasn't for hire. Like I didn't want to record bands really. I wanted to record like artists that had cool voices and like were trying to make cool music. And so I was like obsessed with Timbaland. Like his like production at the time was like he was like the it dude. And so he had an album where he produced every song, and then there was like features on the whole thing. That was my like dream when I was like 20. And then um my band, I had a band at the same time, and we just got really lucky, I guess, in a lot of ways, and signed to RCA when I was 24 or 23. And from that time, I think that was like the big jump where things kind of changed, because it was like I really had a shot with my artist stuff, but also it put me into the first round of like I got sent to Los Angeles to write with the A-list circuit of like producer songwriters that would shape where I would end up, on the other side. Once the band, didn't work out, I would end up on that side of things. And so, and I didn't know that world ever really existed. But yeah, no, I was artist first. I had no intention of ever writing for it. I didn't really know people wrote for other people or like and I should also clarify, as I always really do, it's like all the collaborations I do, like I even tell a lot of, I have a few kids that I like mentor a little bit, or I have a publishing company with a few writers signed. I tell everyone, like, don't ever say you write for people. It's just not a flattering like thing. Like, I mean, unless you truly are doing that, but even so, everything is like, it's co-written, and I've been very lucky to work with very talented artists that don't need anybody to write for them. They just look for a collaborator that can understand them and help them kind of elevate. I think I'm an elevator, not the one that goes up, but like help somebody elevate their ideas, not write for somebody.
And then when was it that, I mean, you said the band didn't work out. You started pursuing the production side more. When did you decide to start performing as J.P. Clark?
So it's been a long time. I've had a few artist projects since that band. That was like, that was kind of crushing, but also like it did start my whole like what would actually become a career. So I never look back. Like I don't have any, like woulda, coulda, shouldas. Like, oh, I wish this. Like it just it is what it is. It worked out the way that it did, and I'm really grateful for it. And I do have friends that are in the artist spotlight. And like, I know that's also very tough. So it's there's a part of me that's like, enjoys this behind the scenes thing, but like, it's been a long time in the making. I've had 2 artist projects. I've had a lot of artist projects, not that have been released, but I've started so many like bands for the day with artists that I've been writing with or like whatever. But I had in my late 20s, I had a band called, Astro Safari USA, and it was like kind of like a parody kind of band, and we did like webisodes and stuff like that. I had that in the midst of like I was in a cold point in my like writing production career, and so I kind of did that for a few years. Then I had randomly, like with this kid Bryce Fine, who's a friend of mine, like we had some hits like kind of randomly, and my career as a songwriter was revived. Like I've had these weird like I'm like, oh, I'm done with that. And then it's like something happens. But for the last, like, I'd say the last solid 4 or 5 years, I've been every year of that time, I have been positive that I'm about to release solo stuff. And one thing or another, whether it's, scaredy cat syndrome or, just being into one thing or another, or like I get all of a sudden I'm about to drop stuff, and then like, oh, I got to go work on an album for a month with like somebody else. Or a lot of times like a couple of my friend like Mod's son is a kid that I've worked with a whole bunch. I remember him asking me one time, he's like, you know, why aren't you putting stuff out? And I was like, because you keep putting out all the songs we write together, you know. So it's like it's been something in the making for a long time, and I really did finally make the decision with the move to Nashville, out to this land. I've got this like really beautiful, serene setting and this backdrop for, you know, content and just having fun. I said this year is just going to be, I mean, if there's another artist thing, I have a few artist projects I'd like to like pursue, but I was like, I'm going to put my stuff out. It's happening. I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to put out a song every 2 weeks, you know, and I'm just going to do it. And then I can't ever say that I don't know what would have happened. So this is the year for that. And yeah.
Nice. Now, you know, you were mentioning some of the artists that, you know, you've worked with, and then, or actually, you know, even like as a kid doing the Blink 182, like kind of cover band, and then you ended up getting to actually work with Blink 182. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was like pretty special. Like I definitely, you know, that was why I started playing in a band. I mean, it was like literally covering their songs. So it was definitely a full circle moment to write with them and have songs released where my name is like on the written by under a Blink song or under numerous Blink songs. Like that was definitely it's been 4 or 5 ish or 6 years since that. So it's like that the high from that has like sort of, you know, disappeared, and it is just a cool thing. But at the time, I remember I was pretty psyched. That was a scary time in the studio of just like, you know, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if anybody can ever just imagine working with your idols in any way, shape, or form, whether you're in any industry. If you're an architect and you get to work with the best art, like the guy you know, are doing architecture because of, or, you know, for me, music, or sports guys get to play sometimes when the older sports guys keep playing and like the younger guys came in and they're like, you're on my poster as a kid. So it was a very cool moment. And I definitely, like, you know, whenever I'm having any kind of down periods, whatever, I do kind of bring that one up and just like, you know, that was like the kid real dream me kind of coming true. So that was a very cool one for sure.
And then after that experience, was it like, I mean, you went from kind of being like that kid, that fan, or would you consider now like a peer to them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, I think the fan is still there for sure, but like I'm a fan peer or whatever now, which is cool. Yeah, it's nice to like, you know, I don't keep in contact on like a monthly-ish basis, but like every, you know, few birthdays, Chris, there's been a couple, you know, hey, whatever, like congrats on something or whatever, like between specifically Travis more than anybody. He was the most like present, but Tom wasn't back in the band at the time, and I think I would have been fangirling too hard if Tom was in the band at the time, so I might have got lucky that Skiba was in it at that time.
Nice. And then also I saw what the Used and 30 Seconds to Mars, just to name a few. What was working with 30 Seconds like?
Yeah, that was crazy. I was in Mexico at the beginning of COVID visiting a friend down there that she decided that she's like, I'm just out of here for COVID. So she moved from Los Angeles down to Tulum. And I got a email or call or text or fax from my manager and was like, somebody had set up that me and my friend Ryan Daly were going to work on, or like supposed to work with Jared on new, you know, 30 Seconds stuff. And we were told that it like first we're going to do a Zoom with him just so that he could explain the vibe and like play some stuff and whatever. And so that was really wild, just hopping on Zoom like with Jared Leto. Was just, you know, he's got these super blue piercing eyes and he's just like, he looks like a Greek god. And
Talks
and he was
all
actually
chill, laid back.
Yeah, he's super chill. I've heard like there's like story, like I don't even know. There's like rumors and this and that, but there's also like a lot, like I don't know if anything's that crazy or whatever, but like my experience with him, he was like very chill, and super, like I've hung out with some of those, like, or I've been around some higher profile people like that, and I'd say he stuck out as somebody that was like super aware of that, like there were other people, or like he handed out some compliments. He, like, it wasn't all about him, which I was kind of expecting,
More
like,
humble and grounded, basically.
yeah, you know, and I think in total I might have spent 10 hours with him over the course of the whole project. So like, you know, it's like it's not like I don't know the guy. Like it's not like we grew up together, but like you get it, you know, you get some time to, you know, like I don't know, create with somebody, and you do learn like a little bit. But overall, I'd say like my biggest takeaway was I was just like, this guy is just like he's on a different like, I don't know if it's a different
Frequency.
like yes, that's exactly it. He's on a different he's just like tapped into something that's bigger than what I'm tapped into anyways. But like yeah, it was very cool. And the used, you know, honestly, that was another one. My screamo band when I was 17, we would emulate them. You know, I was Quinn, I was like the guitar player, and my singer was, you know, what's his name, Bert, and you know, we wanted to be them. So I don't think we covered any of their songs, but our songs definitely sounded like the used songs. And so getting to work with Bert was like pretty wild. Like there was a one night where it was the first day I was in there, and we had like the song laid out, but we had like melodies and stuff, but not all the lyrics like for the chorus. And I remember him and I just went outside, and I'm on the acoustic and we're just working it out. And I just remember being like, dude, 17-year-old you would be kind of freaking out right now. So that was a very cool, just, you know, very, like I said, you know, full circle-ish moment as well, that kind of connected my youth into my career adulthood.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to check out Jared's house by chance? Because I'm retired military, and I would love
Yeah,
to
it's
see
a
that
bunker.
place.
Yeah, so I did. Yeah, so the thing that it's, if you look at it on a map, like from like Google Maps or whatever, it's in the Wonderland-ish area of like Hollywood Hills or whatever, and it's like it's in an area that are all like mansion, like that are all very big houses, right? But if you look at, you know, when you can just see the outlines of houses like through maps or whatever, it's like, imagine like every house around is the size of these squares, and then theirs is like the size of all the squares there. So it's like this massive bunker thing. So I went there 2 days to work, and the front house, there's like a there's like a front area. The house is probably a normal size ish mansion ish. That was where the band would set up. They had like their full like lights set up, and like they were about to go on tour in the next few months, and so that was like the band house. There wasn't much in it other than a little studio, and then their like live area where you could tell they were like testing lights and stuff. I never went into the main house, but I've heard some stories. But yeah, even just the, yeah, it is very much bunker. It is that, and I think it was. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
we
not.
used to be a military base
Yeah,
or whatever, a little
yeah,
facility. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's why I thought that was really sweet. I
Yeah, I
definitely
wish I
love to
would have got
check
to go
that
to the
out.
main house, but yeah, even the band house was super rad.
Nice. And then going back to you and your let's talk about your latest single, Numb.
Yeah,
And the inspiration behind that.
Numb. So this kid Ryan Daly, I think I've mentioned him a couple of times now. He's we were signed to this guy bussbee, who was like legendary songwriter producer, mostly Nashville based, and he was like our mentor really. I was his like kind of top line songwriter, like, you know, protege. I don't know what the right words are. And Ryan was like his kind of like track guy. And so we linked because of that connection, and Ryan and I would start to work on a lot of stuff together. And Numb is just, honestly, it was I looked back, it was 2018 was the night that we worked on it originally. And all it was it was pretty much a track as is now, but it was the first verse and the chorus and like the post. So it was everything except for the second verse. And it was only like a minute and 10 seconds or however long that is. It was short. And it was like very common, like at the time. I mean, I remember I was doing like sometimes 3, 5, 8 songs a day, sometimes just hooks, sometimes like I was just like pumping stuff out, and like it was just, you know, I was a little you know, like overworking in a sense, and there was probably some stuff I shouldn't have really been doing, but that I've not doing anymore that kind of kept me going. But you know, I would basically just try to get in as many studio, you know, I would be in one session hitting up everyone I knew from like in town to be like, who's working on what? And I was just kind of like that studio, you know, jumper, and was just like, you know, and then I would sleep for 2 days, but you know, but I would just jump around and scream into as many mics as I could and just like make as much stuff as I could, hoping that whatever producer I was working with, maybe they had an artist that they were in with that week or whatever. It's how I've had a lot of cuts happen. Like, you know, years later getting hit up like, hey, that song you did like, you know, 3 years ago turned into a, you know, whatever song. So Numb was like similar thing. Like it was part of like, I'm sure a few songs that we did that night. And I don't think I heard it again until at least 2024, if not last year. And Ryan and I in our texts have like how you can go to like what you sent to people and stuff. And I would always go to his because we had so much stuff, and I would kind of like look back. I could kind of like, it's like a little like database of like, and his, you know, production's really great. So it was kind of like everything in there was kind of like really good. And a lot of times I maybe didn't even do the coolest thing, but I would sing like one line and he would just make it sound really dope and have this really dope track. So he was just very special to work with because I felt very cool that I was like writing this awesome stuff. But anyways, I was scrolling back, you know, and went back to 2018. It was like probably like in the first like 10 or 12 songs that we sent to each other, and I was like, dude, what's up with this one? You know, like this is really sweet, you know. Like I don't know what I said. It probably wasn't that, but I was like, this one's got to happen. So that one kind of got pulled off, you know, whatever, pulled out of the vault, and just fit this first like batch of songs. Like I was doing a little bit of like a folk pop thing when I got here. It's like songwriting on it's really cool, but they're definitely like kind of a little bit more chill and stuff. And like when I really like sat down to, you know, I went through like 70 or 80 songs of like, what do I want to like kind of do? You know, like there's like there's a lot of options here, which is cool. But like, I also want to make sure I kind of, it's a weird space. There's a lot of music coming out right now. And then like, especially Nashville, like, you know, I don't sing a country style, but more of like the guitar stuff was, and I'm still singing my voice. I don't put on accents or do any like thing. I just sing kind of. I think you'll find my voice is pretty consistent no matter what genre like the track is. But yeah, it just all of a sudden like there was like 5 songs that kind of were like, they were all produced by Ryan, so they had like this consistency. They all felt like they had a rock element. You know, even though like the main riff in that song, it's a bass, it's like a synth like bass thing that sounds like a guitar. I play it on guitar like when I play it live, but you know, the choruses have guitars in it, but it's got these elements that are outside of rock, but to me it's a rock song, whether it's, you know, pop rock, alt rock, whatever. And it fit with like the first song I put out was Brain Cells, came out like a month ago before that, and they felt like kind of cohesive without having to ask Ryan to go back in and like do a bunch of work. Cause I was just kind of like, it's tough when you're starting out too. It's like, I'm trying to like realize that like, you know, you don't have to spend like, you can make really cool stuff now and not really be spending a lot of money. And I was like, and also he's done so much for me. So I was like, I don't want to call this guy and be like, hey, can you go back in and like do all this shit for these songs that are like 7 years old or whatever. So I was like, how do I kind of take what's there maybe loop a part so I can write a second verse, and just maybe I have this mastering like mixer guy that's a genius, and he's like able to even take like the kick out of like full mixes and just mix that different. Like he's really genius at it. Even just a stereo file that's all baked in everything, he can get a little bit of separation with stuff, and so that was very helpful. And so yeah, it just fit in. I mean, there's the story behind it. It's so long ago that like it's kind of dark. I would probably, if I'm just being honest, at the time I was like pretty badly addicted to a bunch of things, and so I think it's very reflective of like that time. But for me now, like the reason that it connects with me now is like in a similar way. Like I think I'm more confronting like the you know the idea of like feeling things again, which I have for a while now. And like, it's I don't think you have to ignore old, thoughts and themes and stuff if they don't. It's not like, it has to fit. Like I'm engaged right now, so like me putting out a breakup song, I don't think would be necessarily like, but you could still, tap into heartbreak even though you're happy. Like it's things you went through. So, I think for me it was kind of like the second verse I wrote recently. I wrote the second verse like a few weeks ago, and that one's more of like a conversation like with myself, like why'd you touch it when like you knew that you were gonna love it. That's the first line of it, kind of thing. And so I think it's more of like I got a chance to like talk to the kid that put the verse on, 2018, and be like, well, here's like I kind of like rebutted myself a little bit in it.
Yeah.
And then so yeah.
Well, I'm engaged as well, and we're both in recovery together, and I just celebrated 17 years.
That's
So
awesome. Congrats.
thank you. So that that's the connection I was getting with the song is, feeling and remembering how things were back in the day for me. And then like you were saying, it's like one thing I've learned, and it's like I still got to deal with it, is the fact that, once you get sober, as you start to feel again. The good news is, my old sponsor told me, the good news is you're going to start to feel again, and the bad news is you're going to start to feel again.
Feel again. Yep. That's so true. And it's like it's just being comfortable in the uncomfortable. And it's a challenge. I don't have as much time as you, but like, I've been to rehab a number of times, and like I've gone through it. For me, like unfortunately, I feel like I went through a period, like I feel like I see myself ending up as like I've been California sober a lot, like whether it's like, and honestly for me, things like marijuana does not do it for me anymore. I just start like, I think all the stresses I have going on in my life flood my head. So that's been out of my life for a while. But I've been California sober, like with that, or whether it's like, other things that aren't drinking or hard drugs. But,
Gotcha.
I went through that period forever where I was really afraid of the like zero, the like, you can't do this again. And not that it wasn't an authority thing or like being like, you can't do this, so I wanted to do it more. It wasn't that at all. But it was like, I would see in AA, like I had friends that would have like years, and then they'd relapse. And I think like a couple of them kind of, I think because of, there is a pressure in AA. I mean, like, first off, it's the only thing that works really, like, is actually like, proven to work. So I just would like to like preface this with, I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened in life for a lot of people. And so that's important to, preface with. But there is like within it, there is a little bit of a, it's not even a shame there, but if you do like relapse, you start from zero, and it can be really tough to face the people that, even though honestly they're probably not judging you, like if you're just gonna hop back on. But I think that's easier said than done. And I've seen it happen where, kids that had like 3-4 years, they relapse, they feel this pressure that they're no longer included in the thing, and they just say F it, and then they just keep getting loaded or whatever. And so I changed my personal philosophy to, and I have to be careful because it's not a free, pass to screw up. And then, but it's like, I look at like how much of my life can I spend sober? And, that's been like for the last 6 years that like, if I can get 360 days out of 365, like, I'd like to try to find the win in that, even though I didn't get 365, but I think that thinking has allowed me to get closer to the point where I believe that I will get to a point, where I can start to really stack on the rest of my life. I see myself, at a point where I don't know if what will trigger it, whether it's getting married, kids, other like responsibilities, but I see myself at a point
Land development.
Land development. Yeah. I see myself at a point where I am, completely sober. And yeah, but it's a battle. It's a totally different journey for everybody. And like, dude, 17 years is a heck of a lot of years. That's something they should be really proud. I'm sure you are really proud of it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I am, man. But one thing, and I haven't, done this, but I'm retired military. I've got a lot of veteran friends. I still, I go see a therapist for my PTSD, and still learn to live life on life's terms with the stuff that I've dealt with. And I know so many veterans that are like sober, but they use medicinal marijuana or something to help them with their pain, their chronic pain, and with just shutting the brain down so they could get a good night's sleep at times. Or even now, it's psychedelics, mushrooms, and microdosing.
Ketamine. That was mine. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't consider, and this is an argument I could have with my sponsor, because it's like I don't do that, but it's just like, man, some days I feel like it would help, if I'm not going in to get high. I don't have the mindset of going to get high. I'm just trying to, like, today's a really bad day and I'm hurting and I need to get a good night's sleep, or something. But so I get what you're saying, because it's like I've been in meetings where it's like one dude had to took one of his wife's medications because he was wired, but it wasn't his medication, so he had to start all over again, and it's
right.
just like,
and then it's like,
man.
Yeah, it's like, and if that guy hops right back on the bandwagon, fine. But how many people get lost to the recovery cause because of something like that, where they're not able to, feel a way back in, to feel back accepted. There's like, and there's all different groups as well. Like I said, I heard somebody speak specifically at an AA meeting one night, and he had a specific, like, he had a whole like recovery center and his own like meetings and stuff. And he was speaking at a meeting that I was at, and it was the first time I heard somebody say, if 3 years in a row, if you can get 358 out of whatever, I'm just making up numbers, but if you can be sober for 98% of the time and you've slipped up, but you're not using it as a free pass to go back in, like, maybe that could be celebrated. Like, you have to be careful with that stuff though, because it's like, something that you just start to use. That's where addiction, starts to rear its ugly head, is like when.
Well, yeah. So this will convince us, that it always looks for loopholes,
It does, and there are many.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, my thing is too, it's just like, I know how many veterans take their lives because they don't find the help that they need. And it's just like, if it helps save a life, man, I'm all for it. Like, so I'm kind of on the same boat with you with that side of things. Now, and then speaking of, I guess, nice segue, your other single, Brain Cells. I was checking out the music video. I take it that was on your property that you own.
Is it where all the trees are down and stuff like that?
Yeah. And the dog's got this gnarly ass branch and he's running with it.
That's Boxer. He was in here a second ago. He's like patroller of the land. Yeah. So that was on my property, and that was right after our like devastating ice storm, back in whenever it was back in. And that was here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I remember like seeing, because I got a lot of friends out there in Nashville as well, and some family even. And usually I'm up here in Cleveland, Ohio. And so we, I mean, weather just sucks. Not 80% of the year up
Yeah,
here. But I was
similar
shocked.
to upstate New York.
Yeah, I was shocked to see how bad you guys got hit in Nashville this past winter, man.
It was
Pretty
it
wild.
was it was it was it was crazy. I thought I was prepared for. I had a generator like the one that can run the house type thing, but we were out because of like where we're out here, and actually this isn't even places in like in this in the inner city like East Nashville that are closer. They're like literally over. You're right across the bridge from downtown, and even certain buildings. I don't know how much specifically downtown, but there was areas we were out for 6 days. Which I lived in upstate New York through ice storms, and we'd have some 2-dayers and I think maybe 1 3-dayer. But 6 days, dude, you start to like it's a little different. And the main thing is that our heat didn't work. So we were using space heaters, and apparently space heaters, like if they're right on you, can start making you feel weird. And like we were both feeling like super weird. Like some bad stuff or whatever. And I looked it up and it was like, don't put those things right on you. So
Yeah.
we actually did dip out, and we went to the Marriott downtown which was like because we have 4 animals. So it was like we got one room for like 250 a night, and there were 6 of us in it, including the 4 animals. So that was we did tap out, and it was a little bit too much because
Yeah,
it
you
was
got to
like
do what
about
you got to
50 in
do,
the
man.
house. Yeah.
I
That was
knew, I knew several people that were without power for a while, and I was just like, yeah, it was wild, man.
They said worst ice storm in 90 something years for I don't know if it was like ever, but like definitely in like the Nashville area. And everyone, like, I'm newish here, so like it was at least a little bit you know, it was a little bit comforting to hear locals and stuff being like, "Oh, I've never seen this before." And I was like, "Thank God," because that was bad. There's still, and months later, if you drive down the streets, there's still big piles of like, tree cut up, all like the debris is still littering the roadsides. I mean, it's better now. It's almost gone now that I think about it, but it's still, I mean, it's been months, and it's like the aftermath is still there. But like, in comparison to like some of the thing, I just watched the Hurricane Katrina documentary recently. Like it's absolutely nothing compared to like what some of the world is going through. So,
Yeah, what they went
but
through in Carolina like the year before or whatever, too.
yeah,
With
like
that hurricane, that
if
was
this is as
wild.
bad as it gets here, like I'll take that, hopefully once every, 20 years or something.
Yeah,
Maybe
now
once every
you
90.
do
Yeah.
do something other than space heaters to prep for, the next one.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Now, with you releasing some of your own tracks now, is there any talk about maybe wanting to go out and support the album and perform these?
You know what? Yeah. So like I think like I've done a lot of like I feel like since it's a new project, like I feel like there might be like, it's like it could look like, this is the first stuff that I'm like putting out, but I've been putting out music, even though there's a big gap. Like I've been in the artist situation for 20 years and like seen the release cycles of artists. So like I do feel sort of like I have a idea of like how that works. So I the truth is I would love to do that. And the other truth is that I will do that. I just think that it's like recently, in like 2020, my band went out with Bryce Vine, my last band, like prior to, COVID and all that. And we opened for him. It's like 1,500 kids a show, 6 weeks long. And man, I'll tell you, we didn't see like things didn't change. Like, we like sold some shirts and like, sure, like, you know, we got a couple, maybe 100 or like 200 followers a show, like there's some action. But if you quantify it with the price that it actually costs you to go out there and
Yeah.
like do that, it's a very high price tag. And so my my answer to that is that I would love to. And if there's a demand. I think what artists are doing now, or like at least some of the ones that I know, they're just very like they're very locked in, and if they have an agent, they're very locked into where their markets are, and like, you know, hey, we can sell 300 tickets in Chicago. Well, if I could sell 300, tickets in Chicago, I'll go play Chicago, But I just think from what I've seen and stuff, I think you can do a lot more. It sucks that I came from the previous generation actually of like, when you would just go out. I mean, I've spent 2-3 years on the road in a van and playing for 20
Yeah.
people, 30 people, sometimes like 200, all over the place. So I've done that grind and it was fun, but my back hurts still, honestly. But yeah, that's the long short answer of it is like
Yeah, and
I
usually you
really
got
hope.
paid enough to fill up the gas tank at least,
Yeah.
Now it's just like with everything going on, it's like I'm here and it's putting a hurting on
Yeah.
touring and everything.
So I think, right now I'm gonna keep focusing. I'm still like, I'm like I said, the later generation. I've been on TikTok for 2.5 months now, or a little less, and went from I don't have a lot of followers. I'm from like 0 to maybe 9,000 ish in that time, something like that. And I'm still learning how that game works, and like I'm excited to like really dive into the marketing side. I've always felt like I've had the music on lock, but I've never really fully understood. I mean, also it's because I didn't want to. I wanted to just be in the studio and let let the labels and let the artists and let the different camps like do the promotion, and I just wanted to create. And so
Yeah.
now there is a little bit of a change of like, all right, rather than making 20 songs a week, I'll write whenever I'm feeling, charged up to write, but I don't force it at all. And I spend, calculated time looking, like really learning, like, how do I market this stuff now? Cause it's like, like I said, like Numb is a 7 or an 8-year-old song. Right. And it's like, how that's already written. So like, how do I now I'm more like kind of like nerding out. I'm like, well, how do I like make this go viral? Like, not to be like super Gen Z, like about, that kind of stuff. But like, I am really fascinated by that stuff because I do think over the span of like the times that we're alive and just that music is like, there's always going to be a ton of great talent that never actually, gets out there, like they've got the best, like songs that are way, and then on the flip side, there's stuff that's not good, that's like getting tons of attention and like, and then there's everything in the middle of that. And so I don't want to end up on the first side that I mentioned. And I think I have to an extent. And I think part of my anxieties or my like reservations towards putting out music the last 5 years was like, I just didn't feel like I was ready to like, do TikTok or like whatever. So I, I've, I'm saying F it, like this year, and I'm just going for it. I'm making stuff that I'm comfortable making. I don't like, I still like when I don't know, like the scene I come from. I don't know about like your music scene when you were like a teenager, but like if you were caught dead, like lip syncing to your song on your phone, like you got blacklisted from the scene,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that
Pretty
that's
much.
that scene
Yeah.
I come from. So it's taken a little bit of like hey, it's new times now and whatever. But I try to keep still like I if I don't feel comfortable while I'm doing it, if I don't feel like either I had a lot of effects on it and stuff like that, or or like whatever. But I'm searching for like the voice and just the just really learn. I'm using a lot of Chat GPT. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of my friends that are doing well. I've been circling back with a lot of people in the last 2-3 months, and just like I'm not afraid to pick brains anymore. And like I've along the way always been there's been like some kids from my hometown or like different writers. Like I've had a fan base. I have like maybe a couple hundred people that follow me because they're like, they know that I'm a writer, and they're like, certain people do care about who's behind the song or whatever, but it's not a large amount of people. But so I, and I've it's actually really fun. Like I've done many like quick Instagram like video calls with like random songwriter kid that hits me up and like, yo, I have some questions, and I'm sitting on my couch and I'm doing like watching like The Sopranos, and I'm like, just call me if you want, and they're like, what the heck? And then I just kind of drop, it's like that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of pulling that with some of my friends that know the ropes right now. So yeah, hopefully the karma's given back.
Yeah, I feel you with the social media stuff, man. I'm a 53-year-old man, and it's just like,
It's tough.
I had to do the TikTok for this to promote the podcast. I have to get into the social media thing, but I ain't doing no dances. I mean, I'm trying to learn the algorithm, just to get more. I've been blessed to get a lot of great guests on this show, and I don't even have a huge following. And I'm hoping one day maybe the right one will hit, and then I'll have a nice big back catalog for everybody to check out, But it's trying to learn that game at my age. I'm more of like a hands-on, like I would book shows here in Cleveland back in the day, and I would staple the flyer on the telephone poles and drop them off at the record exchange and stuff like that. That's the gorilla.
I'm 40, so I mean, I'm kind of right there with you. It's like it's changed, and I think maybe the like kind of like the end kind of like weigh in on that is sort of like I think the great advice I've gotten on it is like, if you can find a voice that feels authentic and comfortable, and by voice I don't mean like whether hey, I talk like whatever, but if you can find like how you're going to connect or have something like that's repetitive or whatever, like that you're comfortable doing, at the end of the day, if you're comfortable doing it, like you have to realize most people are way more comfortable with stuff that you probably feel cringe about, like I see stuff and I'm like, holy guacamole, like how is that? Like that is like, sorry.
Yeah, the things that get all the views are like, are you kidding me? It's like jackass stuff or something.
So if you find stuff that you are comfortable doing, people are more than comfortable with that, and you're probably, what I'm saying? So that's what I've been searching for, and like maybe that's equally something like for you. It's like there are people, it's like that's the cool thing about TikTok though. It's like it's not just 13 to 25-year-olds. Like there's literally like all age groups on there. Like your age group and my age group is like represented on there, and like it's also the only I guess Reels kind of do it, but like I love that it just automatically throws your stuff in front of a random audience, like whereas it used to be Instagram, you could only whatever you posted, you only reached your followers, and like this is like I don't remember, I only have 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I think because I never understood how to make it grow, but on TikTok I'm there in like 2 months because it's just like, oh, I get rewarded for posting, like just do it. And then it's like, I've been reading into the analytics of like how long people got, like everything about it, and like,
gotta hit the right hashtags and everything too.
Yeah, and like my hook didn't happen fast enough, so I gotta, and I've just nerded out on that stuff, and it's kind of working. So we have our audiences out there. I know it. We just got to keep going with it.
Gotcha, man. Well, speaking of your socials and everything, for any new fans that hear about you just watching the show and want to start following you, where would you send them?
Yeah, J.P. Clark, my name here, just at J.P. Clark on Instagram. On TikTok, it's at Peasy. You can actually go there. If you go to my Instagram, it's got a link tree in it in my bio. Okay. You can find everything on there. As far as like, you can find a playlist for all the songs I've written for like anybody else. There's like 100 or so on there. For every other artist I've ever done stuff for, as far as all the stuff I'm doing now, and then links to TikTok, YouTube. I'm not on Twitter, but yeah, it's all in the. I'd say that would be the best way.
Gotcha. And then before we get ready to wrap up, I want to ask you a couple questions I normally ask guests that I have on here. I mean, we talked about a lot of people that you've sat under the learning tree with along the way, but who would you say are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you who you are today?
Um, okay, so I have to give the first one. Sorry for the cliche, but it like my mom. She and I would say my parents, but like I will specifically because they've both really been supportive in like separate ways. So let's just yeah, but I just to get a little more specific, like my mother, I think when it was like time to go to college or like, to do all the things that I didn't do or whatever. And maybe she was naive and like didn't know how hard the industry was, whatever. But I feel like she was always like literally whatever I wanted to do, like we did it, if it was like, if I was like, I don't want to go to college, and she's like, go fly, butterfly, kind of thing. And so without that, it can be really tough. I think like you don't need like your parents' support, but like just I think at a younger age, at your like teenage years and stuff, I easily could have been pressured really hard into going to college, which not to say that that would have led to it. It probably would have though. Like, let's be real. I probably wouldn't have gone down the route that I did. So I have to give number one spot to her. I'd say Busby, like my mentor, my late mentor, would be like number two. Is the first one, like my first session, that was with I didn't even know how like legit he was. Like that like people in the industry, like songwriting, industry would like kill to get in the room to write with him. I had no idea. And so I thought it was really cool. First session that we did, he was like, if you're ever out of your record deal, I think you could do a songwriting thing. And I was like, cool. And then we got dropped and I was like, what's up? So I kind of give the second one to him because I think that, after the mom, co-sign of kind of like getting there, then he was kind of the next one to kind of like really, influence like where that I was like, co-signed by like a really legit dude, even though I was really unknown. And sometimes that helps a lot, like, just having those co-signers, whatever. And then the third, and wait, so the exact question was like,
three people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you who you are today.
Yeah. The third one is Mr. Gomez. He was my third grade piano teacher, and he everybody had to try out for chorus in third grade. I went to a small Catholic school in Manhattan, and you had to try out for chorus. It's just so small of a school, and it's like if you can sing, then you're going to be in chorus or whatever. So I ended up being able to hit one note, so I was in chorus. But I started with a piano lesson. He gave out free piano lessons, like one free piano lesson to anybody that would like to try it. He was just interested in getting kids to try things, and I did one, and I think the account for my mom is like I wasn't necessarily like that stoked on it. Like I was like, yeah, like that was cool or whatever. But I guess, something in him, but he was like, he told my mom, like, your son is like he's I think got a gift for this. Like it's hard to tell, he's young, but like there's something a little bit different. If you'd like, I would actually give him lessons for free, if he'd like to keep going. And so my mom had this long, and I was like, I can't go play like soccer after school, like whatever. So my mom kind of gave me this long talk of like when somebody is going to give like their time like that, when it's usually paid for and whatever, like, we don't always have to say yes, but like, maybe this is one that I could try out. And so I did. And that ended up being very influential in my like just evolution of as a musician. By the end of fourth grade, I was for the fourth through sixth graders, I was playing last. They had kind of the most like challenging pieces last, and I was playing last at the recitals. And then funny note on that is I could read music then. I can't read a lick of music now, and my piano playing is average at best. But he was a big push on all that.
Yeah, I love hearing those stories, man. When the unsung heroes out there that don't know how they're going to impact somebody's life growing up, it's like family and stuff, yeah. But the teachers and stuff out there that don't get enough credit. I love hearing that,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
man. And then,
Shout out Mr. Gomez.
yeah, shout out Mr. Gomez. Hope he sees this and hears this. And then, any message you have for our military members currently serving overseas?
Oh man, yes. Like I have some quotes. So there's a pretty good really good friend of mine, Saran Mays. He served in a few tours in Iraq. He's a big collaborator of mine here, very good guitar player. And he's just one of my best friends, and he's just like, I feel the safest with him and stuff. And so I've heard a lot about I've gotten a pretty big education on just like, at the same time, he's very quiet. Like, he doesn't like to talk a lot about things, but like I've gotten education in just like how much of a sacrifice that is, and like what our armed forces go through, what they've given up, like for the fact that I'm able to pursue something like music, or just like the route or the path that I went, and that it's really all possible. And that's not me, but everybody else that's in the United States that's, doing their thing. It's made possible by everybody that's served for our country. So my message would just be thank you. It's like more than word. I mean, there's more than that. It's just like it's the ultimate sacrifice, and we wouldn't be here. Nobody would be pursuing like their dreams, and there's just so much sacrifice. My grandfather was in the Canadian Armed Forces. He played in the band, not quite the same thing, but so we have a little bit of a background. But really getting to know some of the guys here in Nashville that served, I think I've always had an appreciation for it, but I think I've like the last 2 years I've really gotten I don't know, it's just sunk in on like a deeper level of just like what that really means, So yeah, thank you for your service, and thank everybody else for their service that's out there right now, because it's a job that that not everybody. I don't know if it always crossed my mind if I never even really considered, like, it wasn't even that it was considered. We had like recruiters. I went to military school, for high school, actually. Little known fact. And I think that's what turned me off to maybe going like further with it, because it was just that experience was a little bit rough. But yeah, I would love to get to, perform overseas, for the troops. I mean, that would be honestly a dream.
Nice. Yeah, it meant a lot when we were over there, and people would come just to take our minds off of things and entertain us.
I would love that. Yeah.
I just got accepted into this program, the local chapter here in Cleveland, for Guitars for Vets. So when I
are you a guitar player?
No, I'm not yet. But that's
But
what the program's going to teach me. They're going to give me an acoustic guitar and teach me how to play. So when I get good enough, I'll hit you up and we'll collab on a song together. Right?
That is 100% for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, 100% for me.
JP, man, I really appreciate the time and talking with you. It was good getting to know you a little bit. One last favor before I let you go. You mind cutting a promo ID for the show? Just introduce yourself, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm JP Clark, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Awesome. You nailed it, man.
Cool.
You nailed it. You can cut promo IDs now for everybody, too.
I love it.
Come a long way, man.
Thanks, man. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope our paths cross again.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll be down there sometime.
Yeah, hit me up. I'll find you and follow me, and I'll give you a tour of the land. Like it's really quite special. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely down for that. I'll hit you up on one of the socials or whatever, especially when we start posting some of this.
Sounds great, dude. Have a great Thursday.
Listen up! Hold on to your seats! Grab
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now, here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Fasten your seatbelts.